Hey YouTube, it's Master Killzone here, and this is number 1 in a series of Magic the Gathering deck techs I will be doing. This is on my Boros Battalion deck. So let's dive right in. And I will be expecting some new cards later this week from somewhere. And and I'll be putting those into this deck, and then I will be doing an update deck tech then. So the first card, obviously, that I run is Aurelia, the War Leader. She's the Guild Master for Boros. She's a 6-drop, 3/4, Flying Vigilance Haste, and her ability is when she attacks for the first time each turn, I get to untap all my creatures, and I get an additional combat phase. So she is a really good card for this deck, especially if I have multiple creatures. My next card is Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. She's a 7-drop, 5/5, flying first strike. Halves all damage my opponent deals to me, and doubles all damage I deal to my opponent. She is really useful, really useful. Next is Firemane Avenger. It's a 4-drop, 3/3. This is the first creature in this with Battalion. She's a flying Battalion. Her Battalion is... she deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and I gain 3 life. So that's pretty useful if I want to take out one of my opponent's creatures while I'm attacking. Next, I run 3 Foundry Champions. They're 5-drop, 4/4s. And one of them is a foil, this first one. The other 2 are regular Foundry Champions. But, so Foundry Champion's ability is pretty cool. When he enters the battlefield, he deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of creatures I control. That's really useful if I have a lot of creatures on the field. I would usually save him until later because later in this deck you'll see how I have more low-cost creatures. And I'd usually try to hold him off until I have more of the lower-cost creatures onto the field, and then play him so he can deal some good amount of damage. Next, I run 3 Assemble the Legions. They're 5-drop enchantments. And at the beginning of my upkeep, I put a muster counter on Assemble the Legion, then put a 1/1 red and white soldier creature token with haste onto the battlefield for each muster counter on Assemble the Legion. That's really, really useful, and I bet you guys can imagine how devastating this could be if it doesn't get, if your opponent doesn't get rid of it immediately. It can become a really big nuisance. Next is Audric, Master Tactician. He's a 4-drop, legendary creature. He's a foil. He's a 3/4. He has first strike. And when he and 3 other creatures attack, you basically get to choose how they block and what creatures do block. So, yeah, so basically it says you can choose which creatures block. So basically you can choose that none of your opponent's creatures block, and they just take all the damage, which is actually pretty useful for this ability. That's kind of a cool twist on the ability that you can use. So, yeah. Next is Herald of War, 5-drop, 3/3 flying. When it attacks, I get a +1/+1 counter on it, and angel and human spells I cast cost 1 less for each +1/+1. And if you pay close attention, this deck is mostly angels and humans. So, Herald of War. Then I run Frontline Medic, which is a 3-drop, 3/3. When he and at least 2 other creatures... this is Battalion. His Battalion is where my creatures are indestructible. And I can sacrifice him and counter target spell with X as its mana cost unless its controller pays 3. So that ability is really useful if, like, your opponent's playing a really, really big spell that's, like, really good, and that uses up all their mana, then you can get rid of Frontline Medic to counter that spell. Next is Sunhome Guildmage. This is the first of the really, really low-cost cards. It's a 2-drop, 2/2. I don't really like its first ability because of how much mana it costs. It's... oh, yeah, and by the way, I forgot. On Foundry Champion, he has tap a mountain, he gets +1/+0, tap a plains, he gets +0/+1. Sorry, I completely forgot about that one. Now back to Sunhome Guildmage. I don't like his first ability very much because it's 3 mana. If it was like a 2 mana, then I'd probably be kind of happy. But for 3 mana, creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. But I like his second ability. That's why I run him. It's 4, put a 1/1 red and white soldier creature token with haste onto the battlefield. So Sunhome Guildmage. I also run 1 True Fire Paladin. He's also a 2-drop, 2/2 Vigilance. Tap 2 mana, he gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Tap another 2 mana, he gains first strike until end of turn, which can be really useful if you use both abilities. And then I run 2 Fortress Cyclopses. They are 5 drops. 3/3. When he attacks, he becomes a 6/3, and when he blocks, he becomes a 3/6. So he can be really, really, really useful. Ordron Veteran, 4 drop, 3/1, his Battalion, he gains double strike. 2 Boros Elites, they're 1 drops, 1/1, their Battalion is where they get +2/+2 until end of turn. I run 3 Sky Knight Legionnaires. Sky Knight Legionnaires are 3 drop, 2/2, flying haste. These guys are useful because if your opponent doesn't get creatures out on the field really fast, these can be a problem, because you can play them and immediately start dealing some heavy damage. This first one is from the original set of Ravnica City of Guilds, i.e. that symbol. The other 2 behind it are the new Gatecrash Sky Knight Legionnaires. Next, I run 3 Wojek Halberds, if that's how you pronounce it, not 100% sure. They are 2 drop creatures. 3 2s, and their Battalion is where they gain first strike, which is useful. Next is Boros Charm. It's a 2 drop. It can either deal 4 damage to target player, permanents I control are indestructible, and target creature gains double strike. All of those are really useful for running in this deck. Next is Martial Glory. It's a 2 drop. Target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn. Target creature gets +0/+3 until end of turn. And you can use both on the same creature. So you can basically have one of your creatures get a +3/+3 until end of turn. That is really useful. Next, I run Arrows of Justice. Arrows of Justice is a 3 drop with the little half and half for the mountain and the plains. It deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. These are really, I love these because, and since it's blocking, you can actually play it and have it deal the damage before the creature is finished blocking. So that is really, really useful. Next, I run 2 Shattering Blows. One is a foil Shattering Blow. Shattering Blow is a 2 drop. It's an instant. Exile target artifact. That's really useful if your opponent plays a really, really good artifact like Batterskull. If you guys aren't familiar with that, it's an artifact. Not 100% sure what its cost is, but you get to put it's a living weapon, gives it +5/+5, and something else. That probably wasn't a really good example, but if they play a really good artifact, you can get rid of that artifact permanently with this card. Next, I run 2 Smites. They're pretty self-explanatory. They're a 1 drop. Destroy target blocked creature. And if you notice it said blocked, that means that the creature actually has to be blocked by one of your creatures to be destroyed. So if your opponent is attacking you with a really powerful creature and your creature blocks it, and your creature dies, you can play Smite and destroy their creature. So that's pretty useful. Next, I run 2 Furious Resistances. They are also 1 drops, just like Smite. These are like the red version of Smite in my deck. It's an instant. Target blocking creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. So this is really useful if you want to get rid of your opponent's creatures. Yeah. Next, I run 2 Boros Key Runes. Pretty self-explanatory, just like all the other Key Runes. They're 3 drop, tap it, add a mountain or a plains to your mana pool. And if you tap 2, a mountain and a plains, it becomes a 1/1 red and white soldier creature with double strike until end of turn. That is pretty useful, especially if you use something on it like Martial Glory or Boros, not Boros Key Rune, sorry. But yeah, if you use something like Martial Glory on it, or Furious Resistance. Then I run 2 Boros Guild Gates. This is getting into the lands now, so I run 2 Boros Guild Gates, just like all the other Guild Gates. They enter the battlefield, tap it, add a mountain or a plains to your mana pool. And one of the cards I will be adding into this deck is Boros Garrison from the original Ravnica City of Guilds. But the reason why it's not in there currently is because I left them at my school, so I will be getting those back soon. I run 10 plains. The reason why I run so much basic land is because I don't have a lot of regular lands, and as I said, I will be expecting some new cards soon, and some of the cards within there are some lands. So I run 10 plains and 10 mountains. But that will change soon by the adding of the Boros garrisons and some other cards, other land cards that I choose to add in. So this was number 1 of my Magic the Gathering deck techs. Please rate this video, like it, post a comment if you want to, and definitely subscribe to my channel for more. So thanks for watching. Bye.